It's fine.
The next question. Can academic coaching help my students deal with the difficult social aspects in public school, such as bullying, peer pressure, etc.?
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a symptom of the failure of our current ideas around education that highlights content over kindness.
Mm.
And I see it a lot. It's it, I've worked with some students who've had, you know, as their coach when they're dealing with these kind of things. First, I just feel tremendous sadness. And I feel like we're wasting so much talent that we aren't even aware of.
Mm.
It's just really rough. And the system doesn't. I think the system, it's like it puts too much pressure on students. It judges them harshly. The system of grades and all of those, you know, all those things that surround that. Um, I think it places a lot of stress on students, and that stress has to come out someplace. And unfortunately, students like who fall into bully patterns, you know, the same things are happening in their own lives, oftentimes. And it's like that negative emotion, that negative cycle needs to go. It needs to come. It needs to come someplace. We don't really have good structures in our society for how to deal with it. And the bullying problem I see is a fundamental problem, is one of the fundamental problems in education. But I don't think of it as, I don't think it's a root cause. I think it's a symptom of education, you know, focusing on grades as opposed to kindness.
Mm.
And if we taught kindness in schools, that would be amazing. And that's what we used to do in kindergarten. It was around kindness, but then there's this pressure now for even kindergartners to read, which is fine, but you know, not every kindergartner is ready for it yet developmentally. And I've known students who didn't really read until only first or second grade, but then they go on to become valedictorians. And I feel like our system, it's meant to stifle that even more and more.
Mm.
On a one-on-one basis, can coaching help students deal with bullying on a one-on-one basis? Absolutely, yes. And I think what I've seen help is when you're working with students, for them to separate whatever, you know, to realize that what the narrative that the bully wants to use is not them, that they can choose to not adopt that narrative. And that's empowering. If it is to the case where you think, yeah, this is beyond, you know, this is really affecting safety, this is not okay, then you as a coach can take actions, contact people, contact parents, contact schools. It's and that can be useful as well. I've never had to go that distance. I'm trying to think. It's been a little bit. I think there have been a couple of times I've contacted parents. Most of the times, parents that I've worked with have been on it as well. Like it's a known thing going into this.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the students I've worked with, let's say 60% of them have been high school students. And some of the mindsets that they've got into is, I just need to get through this and go off to college and everything will be okay. That feels unsatisfying. I mean, now it gets me really fired up. It's bullying is it's a symptom. We need to emphasize more kindness in schools. Period.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that immediately came to mind is the opportunity that coaching provides for someone to understand their inherent value. And I know we've talked about this before. I'm big on understanding our value and understanding our worth. And similar to what you're saying, this idea of the narrative of a bully and us and our choice within that. And part of our ability to be able to make that choice to say that is not me is to understand ourselves and understand our value. And coaching offers an opportunity for students to be able to say, this is who I am, and own it for themselves, knowing that whoever they are, they have value, and that each person has so many incredible qualities that make them valuable, that are unique to them, every person. And so to know that and understand that and live that out fully is huge, especially if I think about in elementary school or middle to high school, having a life coach to be able to identify those things. There's a lot of things as an adult that that I've had to process and work through as an adult, that I think, man, if I would have been able to know that then, nip that in the bud, or some of the boys' narratives that I heard when I was younger, like how different it would have been as an adult. And I think you're right. There's some things where, even for myself personally, I put aside thinking, oh, it's okay. And, but learning some of the stories that I have told myself based on certain things. And so it can be incredibly powerful to be able to know your value at a young age. To be able to come at that with that is like a powerful force for yourself internally. But I think when you have that view for yourself and the understanding for yourself and empathy for yourself, it just overflows into all of the interactions, which then inspires other students and other kids to know their value. And they see when somebody walks in and says, like, this is who I am. Kids pick up on these things. They're so smart. And they want that for themselves as well. So yeah, that was great, John. I think that's really great insight into that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it gets me going. It gets me thinking of like how like it really it feels like a race. Like we're racing against a lot of the older narratives that I feel like need to go away. Like they're and I see it even now. I see it sometimes, like like when you're on playgrounds and you're asking, you're seeing different values being emphasized. Where as a society, you ask yourself, like, do I value success over kindness? What's more important?
Yeah.
It's a big deal. That's not an easy question sometimes to answer. And I think that our society often values success. I mean, yes, like it's there. And sometimes people will say, well, kindness is weakness. Compassion is weakness. Empathy is weakness. Vulnerability is weakness. This is why Brene Brown is so popular and why her message is so right on, is because she's challenging this narrative of vulnerability being weakness. So I think that we have some work as a society to do in really asking ourselves, can we be kind and compassionate to each other?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean weakness. I think instead we've been conditioned to jump to judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing the effects of it. I mean, politically, especially. Around the world. Look at the scope of human history. It's not encouraging. It's not encouraging. But when you look at what is encouraging are the one-on-one interactions when you're looking at coaching, and what the mission of coaching is to bring more of these things to the world. Mm-hmm. That is encouraging. And when you start getting groups of people working together like this, it's hard. It's a challenge for sure to stay in kindness, empathy, compassion. But it doesn't mean weakness,
One of the things I love about it too is that it's something that grows the more that we lean into it as well. And that we can continue to grow in empathy and compassion and kindness. And I think the more we lean into it, the more that we give that out as well. And I love that it can be also learned in a lot of ways. And I think that's a beautiful piece to it. You don't have to stop in it. You can continue to lean in and actually see a lot more impact and transforming power because of it. And I love that too.
Thanks, Ashley. It's fun to have you here on these lives.